Hi guys. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about purchasing crabs and bringing them home and introducing them to your tank. Now I'm assuming you already have a tank up and running and that you would be adding new guys to it. One of the first things you want to do is create a bath for them. If you're buying from the pet store, I would suggest using a saltwater bath made with an ocean mix. That way, if they've been deprived salt water in transit and at the pet store, you're giving them a chance to kind of get replenished on salt water. The idea of the bath is to help check for mites and other things that might be inside of their shells. So you don't need the water to be crazy deep, just deep enough for your small or your largest crab. This little guy's having some trouble here. Put them in there. Let them walk around. Ideally, you want to flip them upside down, let their shells fill up with water, and then pick them up and check them for mites. Mites are little bugs that can be on them. The ones you really need to be worried about are red mites that attach to the gill of the hermit crab. So if you don't see any mites on them, go ahead and let them all rinse off, turn them upside down, flush out their shells, and then move them into a place to dry off. Next, we'll look at setting up a temporary tank to house your crabs because you don't want to immediately put them into your main tank. So we'll be back in just a second with that. Looking at my temporary housing for my new hermit crabs. And let me explain a little bit about why we do this. When you purchase hermit crabs from a pet store, those hermit crabs arrive at the store dehydrated and usually starving because of the way they're shipped. They're captured wild. They're stored in crates until there are enough of them to ship out to a wholesaler who then ships them out to pet stores. Now, when they get to the wholesaler, I'm sure they're probably offered some food and water at some point, but I can't guarantee that. But in the holding phase before that, they're basically denied water and food. So by the time they get to the pet store, they are already very physically stressed. So then when you bring them home, if you immediately put them in your main tank, you are exposing them to a drastically different environment that is now humid and warm, and their system often can't adjust as fast as it needs to. Eating is an important part of their thermal regulation. So if you put them in the main tank, the first thing they often do is dig down, and we used to call this digging down to distress. But we found over time doing some research and I did some of these with Sue Littell many years ago, that when they dig down to distress, they often die within a month. So instead what we started doing was creating this holding tank that does not have enough substrate. This one doesn't have any substrate, it just has moss. So these crabs cannot dig down. They have to stay above ground, and I'm offering them both kinds of water, fresh water and ocean water, of course, and then lots of different foods to eat. What I want them to do is to start eating really well so that their bodies can adjust to a better environment so that they'll be ready to go into my main tank. Because we don't want to shock their system, you don't start this holding tank out at the same humidity and temperature your main tank is. The exact steps for setting up the tank are detailed in an article that we have on the Crab Street Journal, and I'll link that in the notes on this video. But the main idea is to get them in the holding tank, keep them above ground, feed them really good, give them some water, monitor them for a couple weeks at least, ideally a month if you can, and during that time you'll slowly bring up the humidity and temperature in the tank to match what's in your main tank. And then at that point, the crabs that have survived this month will be able to go into the main tank and not have a big shock to their system by a change in temperature and humidity. So these little guys will be in here for a little while. They were adoptees and they were in a nice setup, but I don't know how they were kept prior to that, and the adopter hadn't had them very long. So I just want to make sure, and I'm also expecting some other crabs in a week, so I'd like to monitor all of them and see how they're doing before I put them in the main tank and let them disappear and do their molting thing. So if you have any questions about getting this set up to reduce post-purchase stress and minimize that first month of death, check out the link in the video notes and stop by the Crab Street Journal to check out some of our care articles. Thanks!